10% of all marketing revenues at Centennial Plaza. So it gives them an incentive to kind of do a better job on selling marketing sponsorships. So in a nutshell, that's the structure of the agreement. Blake with SMG, the Civic Center is here to assist with answering any questions of the process. I would say, just from my own perspective, and although I really do want to do this, I do want to give Pat White a big thank you from the hall. He's kind of done a lot of this in the past few years himself, so we owe him a great debt of gratitude for his services and his efforts. He's done a fantastic job, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give a big shout out to Pat. So happy to answer more questions there may be.
Mr. Chairman? Okay, Service Director, we're writing a contract for $262,702, but we're canceling out a contract for $415,000. So is it safe for me to assume that we're $140,000+ that are good?
No, Mr. Chairman, Member Morris's question, that cancellation of the claim, essentially that is for the lease portion of all of the agreements. There's two primary agreements that deal with Centennial Plaza. There's the operation and maintenance agreement, and then there's the big lease to the hall for the Jersey's building. The claim essentially arises from the lease portion, where that's what they would owe us in the outstanding rent for the remainder of the lease term that we are asking to terminate. Of course, then there would be a new agreement between Jersey's and SMG that would take in place, because everything will run through SMG that would replace that. This $260,000-ish is irrespective of that revenue that would come in. These are what we are ballparking our upfront costs to manage this with SMG would be before any of the other reimbursements. So the way it works now is when somebody rents, the plaza, they pay the hall, it goes into the fund, and then they reimburse us, that type of thing. This 260 is a part of that, like recurring cost that come. That's irrespective of that revenue. And this 260 is like on an annual basis. So essentially, the revenue for the lease that would be outstanding that would then go through SMG, it would be a portion of the revenue that would come back to the city through SMG to reimburse us for our annual recurring costs. Did I do okay explaining that? Okay.
Okay, so we're giving out $415,000 potential revenue based on reimbursements due to lease from the Hall of Fame. So what is our projected revenue with SMG?
Member Morris, that is almost impossible to predict, quite frankly, because we would essentially the rental fees and like all of those types of things have been kind of managed by the hall. The sponsorships have also been managed by the hall. They're in control of how the hall sponsorships and plaza sponsorships work together. So in order for us to predict that now that we're taking it over would be very difficult to do. Our hope is that we would be able to, come pretty darn close to a break-even proposition with this thing. And of course, Blake will be in control of the rental fees, the sponsorships, all those types of things. But I am not in a position to sit here and guarantee and say, oh yeah, we would 100% bring in $260,000 or $300,000 in order to reimburse ourselves. We are, however, hoping that we're able to have more events, more activity, more items in order to have those types of opportunities to reimburse ourselves. So we are hopeful that this will work in that fashion, but I cannot guarantee that. I don't want to state otherwise or begin to predict that.
Can I have just a couple things just to clarify some of the things that service director spoke of? Annually, probably looking at about $50,000 that the little event rentals that people do, is what will get reimbursed, along with the reimbursement for the rent income that Jersey's has, which is $5,000 a month currently, and it might change going forward. I don't know what that's gonna look like. But what you're kind of losing sight of on the other side is the expenditures that we have at the plaza. Every quarter, we get billed by the Hall of Fame for upkeep at the plaza, which is landscaping, et cetera, internet services, and all the maintenance of that plaza we get billed quarterly for. And then we also get billed quarterly for the cost of Pat Wyatt and the person that does the screen, the video board program. So those are quarterly costs. So when we're looking at paying the $260,000 and getting our people, that will offset those costs that we currently have for those individual people. And we should see a reduction in the maintenance costs from the plaza, because the two people that we hire will be doing a lot of the maintenance and stuff at the plaza. So that should offset itself.
Just one question, where's Jersey's going to remain in this situation?
Mr. Chair, it is my understanding that Jersey's is going to remain. There's been an extended back and forth with SMG, Jersey's, and the city, and it's our understanding that they would like to remain. And it's our hope that they remain, and I know we work hard to retain them and to keep that relationship positive.
So Jersey's essentially is retaining their lease and are going to sublease it to SMG. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of. Jersey's, it's a little bit different. It's not a lease when you run it through SMG. It's much like the Civic Center. It will be essentially like we have an agreement with SMG. It's a management agreement. It's like a license agreement through SMG to operate the facility. So it's not a lease per se. Quite frankly, it's the way to legally not do a big lease is to run this thing through SMG because they're managing it for us. There's very few exceptions to us posting a formal bid. The current process with the hall, we actually had to post a bid. It was open to the general public. There were a couple bids. The hall won the bid, to manage or to lease the cafe structure that they subleased through Jersey's. Now that we have now if we do this, we have SMG, because we have a management agreement with them, it eliminates the need for that big lease. So it becomes more akin to a traditional private business transaction where SMG works with the end user, in this case, Jersey's, to have that more traditional relationship. But it's not a lease per se that the city would typically have.
Where does Jersey come into play? Let's say Jersey decides at some point they don't want SMG to be the management company anymore.
That is not necessarily their prerogative to pick and choose the management company. That's the city's contract with SMG, so that's our I guess as a group collective say. Not our fight to make. But yes, they at this point I believe have a good relationship. I can't speak for Jersey, they're not here, but that is my understanding.
And member J-Basis, just to add to that, it was the city's intent that Chris Majuri came downtown back in the day when nobody else wanted to come downtown. And I told Chris from day one that I want him to stay. Now, obviously, he had to think about it, and his intent is to stay, and that's what I would like to see. But if he would decide that he would want to leave, I don't really think we would have an issue filling that void with the cafe down there. The bottom line is, we own it. It's our central park, whatever we want to classify it as. And Chris would just be entering into a sublease agreement with SMG.
So the intention is for Jersey's to remain.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Very good.
Okay, one more question, you guys don't mind? Capital expenses, capital repairs, because didn't we just cough up a bunch of money to put in a Fuller Dam? Who's on the hook for that now?
Mr. Chair, Member Morris, We have always been on the hook for capital expenses at Centennial Plaza. So under the current arrangement, we're on the hook. Under the new arrangement, we remain on said hook.
Any questions or concerns? And we will sign that out. Next item is number 17 on your agenda. This is an ordinance authorizing the auditor to pay all of our obligations necessary to resolve this CJIS notification issue, CJIS amending appropriation ordinance number 55, 2025, and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Mr. Chair, members of council, this particular ordinance has been reported on previously. It's an incident from last summer where there was an issue with a user accessing the CJIS system, where essentially they were able to have access to the typical information that any of us can see on CJIS, but in addition to driver's license numbers, we had to send out notices, even though it's not necessarily an entirely great useful combination of data. It did trigger the necessity to send out notices to folks who had that information accessed. So, long story short, it was covered by our cyber insurance policy, which is great. We have, so the whole thing would have cost us in these mailers $260,000, but we do have a $50,000 deductible, so that triggers the moral law. So I'm asking for a moral law to pay the $50,000 deductible. We do have Cody Gonzalez here, our Chief Deputy Clerk, of course. If there's any questions about the actual incident, I know it's been some time, but Mr. Gonzalez will make sure he's here to answer any questions in case there's anything remaining from that.
Questions or concerns? Mr. Gonzalez, do you have anything you want to add? Okay, hearing none, we will sign that out. Next item, we're going to go back to a point of order. We missed 16. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor and director of public service to enter under contract amendment with Stoll Air State Architecture Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $12,870 for the additional civil engineering services related to the Civic Center, restroom, and the parking lot expansion project. Amending appropriation ordinance number 55, 2025, authorizes the auditor to pay all more obligations related to the change order and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, earlier this year, we entered a contract with Stoll Air State for the restroom and expansion and parking lot here at the Civic Center. Again, that's a part of the, we received $250,000 state capital funds to put towards that project, and we eventually did it. What has happened during design is it's been determined that we need additional engineering for subgrade repairs and drainage in the parking lot, which will create more additional engineering costs. Thus necessitate a change order. It is over the 10% threshold that you can do using VOC, so we are asking the Canton City Council for approval.
Questions or concerns? Hearing none, we'll sign that out. Next item is number 18 on the agenda. This is an ordinance authorizing the clerk of council to certify the county honor unpaid and delinquent charges for services performed by and under on behalf of the City of Canton Building and Code Department for board up, clean up, and demolition changes and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, as we do every month with this body, this is the current list for March of unpaid and delinquent charges for board ups, cleanups, and demolitions for the month of March.
Questions or concerns? Hearing none, we will sign that out. That will conclude financing now.
654.
654.
Let's do public safety and thoroughfares.
I have that.
You've got that one joint session with finance?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's now 6:36. 6:55. Okay, we're going to call the joint committee meeting between finance and public safety and thoroughfares to order. First item is number 18 on our 13 on your agenda. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor and director of public service or the designee to establish the fair market value of real property, enter into agreements for the purchase, acquisition of these parcels, enter agreements for the sale or demolition or donation of these city-owned properties, for the payment of road right-of-way, utilities easements, and/or temporary construction easements for the Tuscarora Street West Safety Corridor project, to make ministerial changes and to correct the property owners' names, parcel numbers, and other numerical, descriptive, or typographical errors should they occur, declaring an intent to appropriate the parcels if negotiated settlement cannot be reached, and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, this is what could be the first of several right-of-way ordinances for the West Tusk project as we work through that this year. As I think most folks know, the plan is for that to be bid in early 2026. This project essentially stretches ballpark from Smith to Wertz, and I think everyone also knows that the remainder of West Tusk, that's not Smith to Wertz, is under contract through ODOT to be paved this year. So you'll see Tusk, other than this project, paved this year, and this will close it out. This is obviously the big project we've been talking about at length for some time. In terms of right-of-way, the ballpark cost is approximately $4 million. There is a block of right-of-way. It is a very large project. We do anticipate reimbursement through SCATS for $3.2 million of that right-of-way. If there are any questions about anything specific pertaining to either the Tusk project or this right-of-way process, we do have Nick Lucas and Rick Boneschatz here from engineering who are overseeing this process.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, we'll sign that out. Next item is number 19. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor director of public service to accept a transfer donation of Stark County Auto parcel number 5219650 and to enter any additional contracts or take the necessary steps to acquire the land at 2100 38th Street Northwest, parcel number 5219650, declaring the same to be an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. This is, as you mentioned, 2138th Street Northwest. This is the site, former site of Stark County Educational Service Center. They had their offices and headquarters there for quite some time. They moved to Stark State, and they demolished the building there. It is now a vacant piece of land, and they are now in a position that they want to dispose of that property. And we entered into conversations with them, and they have agreed to essentially sell it to the city for the fair price of $1. And it's 3 acres, and upon ownership transfer, the city will then begin annexation efforts to bring that into the city because it is currently still in Clinton Township.
Questions or concerns? Okay, hearing none, we will sign that out also. Next item is number 20 on the agenda. It's a resolution authorizing the participation in ODOT road salt contract to be the emergency.
Mr. Chair, members of council, this is the annual request to participate in the ODOT salt contract. As has been the case for some time now, ODOT, in order to do this, requires a very specific ordinance with very specific language, with a fairly tight timeline. Thus, the request for second reading passage tonight. As soon as we get this, we send it down, which was the case this year. So, happy to answer any questions about the annual salt contract.
Questions or concerns? Okay, we'll sign that out. It is now 6:59 p.m.
Okay, let's do Community Economic Development Committee.
6:59, we're going to call CD to order, and it is number 11 on your agenda, and it is to accept tax and expenditure review council recommendations regarding enterprise zone agreements and declare this to be emergency. Ball, Net Project LLC, 12R Power Cable Incorporated, Jules by Allen Rodriguez, Slesnick Realty Company Incorporated, Sheridan Stonage Water Glass Tubes.
Madam Chair, members of council. What you see before you is the annual Tax and Review Council, or TURC, legislation that we bring down every spring that basically affects the recommendations of that council pertaining to the enterprise zone tax agreements that we have here with the city. You'll see in that we are continuing 5 and terminating 1 agreement, and we just need this passed so I can report it back to the state.
Any questions, issues, or concerns? And if not, we'll sign that out. It is 7 o'clock.
Okay, let's go over the agenda real quick. We've got 3 third readings. We've heard the second readings. We're going to be voting on 20, 19, and 18. Any questions on the second readings? First readings, we have 1, and we'll be voting on that on the floor. Any questions on communications? Member Sacco, you have the invocation. And Walter Richter.
At this time, I request that we go into executive session to discuss pending litigation. I ask that the mayor, his staff, auditor, and treasurer be involved. Thank you.
I'd like to make that motion.
Mario,
Aye.
Babcock,
Aye.
Gevasis,
Aye.
Crystal Smith,
Aye.
Maley,
Aye.
Kimbrough,
Aye.
Scaglione,
Aye.
Chris Smith, Fisher, Hooks, Sacco, Morris. You are now in executive session.